Good afternoon to you.
I've already billed you as a man delighted by this agreement, a man who thinks that this is exactly what the doctor ordered, just the ticket, and in every way the thing that we need to move on and get Brexit done. Is that how you feel?
I think moving on and getting Brexit done is absolutely critical. There are so many important things that we need to address, not least what's going on in Ukraine. We've got a budget coming up as well. We've got some difficult times. We've got some big issues we need to focus on, and yet the subject of Brexit comes up again and again in a negative form because there's been indecision. So this is an historic day. Well done to the Prime Minister for having the courage to lean into this and provide post-Brexit trade arrangements that are now going, I hope, will be agreed for Northern Ireland. You're right to suggest there's still a few hurdles to get through. There's the detailed text to come out, some more voices to be persuaded. But to get us here today, I think required new personalities, if we're honest, to find compromise. But it does confirm a framework that allows these red lanes and green lanes to provide the economy of Northern Ireland to be able to flourish. That's good for Northern Ireland. It's good for Great Britain. It also respects the Northern Ireland sovereignty. That's important. Upholds the Good Friday Agreement. And I think wider, it'll actually start to help improve bilateral relationships, not just with the UK and indeed the EU, but also with the United States as well. Better collaboration with the French. We've got a summit coming up there. We want to, sort out those small boat challenges. All this becomes a lot easier if we can get this Brexit deal, the new framework, in place.
So tell me, for those people who haven't been following the detail in the minute way that you have, what is the clever thing that Rishi Sunak and his advisors have done? What have they included or excluded or implemented that wasn't there before, A? And B, how does it differ from whatever his predecessors suggested? Where's the good bit, the clever bit that makes today a turning point?
Well, up to today, then everything that's going into Northern Ireland, all the goods had to be treated as if they were entering the EU. And if we're going to remain a sovereign nation that includes Northern Ireland, and we've voted for Brexit, then clearly that doesn't mean that Brexit has applied to all of the UK. So this breakthrough here allows a trusted trading status to the majority of goods that are actually going to end up only in Northern Ireland, which come from Great Britain. Those that might end up in Ireland itself, going via Northern Ireland, go through a red lane instead. And that's immediately eased a lot of the trade that goes through to Northern Ireland, which was affecting significantly supermarkets, for example, in all the goods and produce that they absolutely require. There was also differences in VAT as well. So if we change the VAT for alcohol duties, for example, then they wouldn't affect Northern Ireland because they were still subject to EU law. So that's been altered as well. And of course, there's other issues or things that are liberated, such as the Science and Research Innovation Project Horizon, which then allows a huge investment into Northern Ireland from an academic perspective as well. So crossing this hurdle allows so much to take place. I was in Northern Ireland only a couple of weeks ago talking to defence industries, and they were very frustrated that the political uncertainty meant no business really wanted to invest in Northern Ireland. And hopefully, once we get this across the line, it'll provide a sense of stability, a direction of travel, which will actually benefit the economy of Northern Ireland, and that benefits the UK as a whole.
You might say this isn't our primary concern, but I suppose indirectly it has to be. How is this of benefit to the EU? Why has Ursula von der Leyen been so helpful or supportive or compliant or any other word you want to use? What's in it for them, would you say?
Well, firstly, there's the economic side of things, because when I served in Northern Ireland, and I remember being there, the border that was then there, the trade between the Northern Ireland and Ireland itself is absolutely huge and critical for both sides of the island itself. And it was in Ursula von der Leyen's interest to make sure that continues to work. Ireland, the country, will be delighted with this. But also there's this other issue. Britain is a major player in Europe. We've, I think, illustrated that with how we've lent into supporting Ukraine. We're one of the biggest economies, and there's now a respect and understanding that this is where the country has gone because of Brexit, but also a desire, I think, to work with Great Britain, work with the whole of the United Kingdom And so her coming over here, the head of the EU as such, recognizing that we want to have a good, solid working relationship. Don't forget, half of our trade still is with the EU, and therefore it's in everybody's interest to get the best deal we can. And this was one corner of Brexit which wasn't solved. Getting this across the line, as I say, has been a major breakthrough today.
So am I right in thinking that one of the major shifts today has been a move from a sort of adversarial opponent stance between the British Prime Minister and the head of the EU, and a sort of suddenly a kind of, I don't know, a fraternal, sororial, totally different kind of I scratch your back, you scratch mine, and we're on the same team atmosphere, which we haven't really seen before. I think that was something of a shock to people watching it today, this Dear Rishi thing, and the closeness and the idea that we're all on the same page, because for so many years now, since 2014-15, it's felt as if we were on absolutely different pages, pushing in completely opposing directions. This is a big deal and a turning point partly because of that, isn't it?
I think you sum it up very well.
Oh, thank
Indeed,
you.
It did become very antagonistic, very adversarial, and I think unhelpful. You know, we have real adversaries, real competitors across the world. I put a piece out in the Telegraph today saying we've now entered a new Cold War. That's absolutely where I feel, with Russia and China developing perhaps an opposing view of the world, exploiting it, and our world will splinter into two spheres of competing influence. This is happening all around us, and we've been subsumed by some of the details and not being able to agree with some of our closest friends here in Europe. So I think the body language you saw today, the personalities and so forth, this is all critical, particularly when you want something on one side or want something on the other. I mentioned France. We need to strike a much better deal to sort the small boat problems out. That requires a working relationship with France. We've got a summit coming up in Paris very, very soon indeed. And I hope that now with this new energy, this new determination, we can see progress made on that front as well.
I mean, when you say this new energy, this new determination, what you're really saying is Rishi Sunak, aren't you?
Well, of course, it's the Prime Minister here who's done that. And yes, you're then pointing to where we were in the past. I mean, there were previous Prime Ministers that gained their own energy by being antagonistic towards Brussels, because, you know, there were quarters, you know, in the country that very much saw this, you know, as the adverse.
Well, them and us, absolutely, them and us, and we want to be us and we don't want to be them, absolutely right. We all remember Boris Johnson's border in the sea, that border in the Irish Sea, that notional yet palpable border. Was that pushed underwater now? Is it 20,000 leagues under the sea, that border? Does that no longer exist? Has that evaporated, that idea?
No, the trading lines that will now go through, the red and green lanes as such, yes, they is now advanced this much further than this. And I'm really pleased that we've got here. But it has taken a lot of detail, a lot of hard work to make sure that everything can work practically for any business that wants to operate either from Great Britain into Northern Ireland or then on to Ireland itself. But let's be clear, we're not out of the water yet. We've got the DUP to persuade, elements of the Conservative Party as well. What I would say from a bigger perspective, a wider perspective, is that, you know, the country wants to see leadership, it wants to see vision, it wants to see competence and courage, a willingness to find solutions to difficult challenges, a sense of vision and purpose, above all, unity. What it doesn't want to see is infighting, division, or obsession with partisan politics for personal gain. And I really do encourage colleagues to rally around the Prime Minister, recognise where we are. Our stock was not high after a miserable summer, let's be fair. We're now improving that, exhibiting greater fiscal responsibility and answering some of those difficult questions connected with Brexit. And that's why today is such an important day.